Hello, world, and welcome to the Innovation Coaching Podcast. My name is Klaus Hostel, and with me today I have Mohammed Ishut. Mohammed, tell me how I can help.
Thank you very much for having me today. So I would love today for your help to be mainly focused on how can I keep the same energy throughout the day. So my main issue is I'm a hardworking individual. I love working, I love high energy, and I love perhaps signing many contracts and doing many projects at the same time. But sometimes what happens is that I start strong during the day and I have so much energy and I am very productive. But when it comes to the end of the day, I start feeling that perhaps I need a boost, if you will, maybe a quick run, something to pick me up, but it doesn't always work like that. So is it a mindset thingy? You think this is perhaps related to my mindset, or this is just the human body that is going through the ups and downs, if you will, especially as you know, during the night, it's normally at sleep time, so we need to relax and take it easy.
So that's a fascinating problem to deal with, right? And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So let's start with the obvious answers. That is just take some more cocaine. No, that's of course not a serious proposition. This is not the 1980s, so we'll stay away from the cocaine. Instead, let's start with looking at what's already there. What do you do now? What has worked for you? What hasn't worked? What have you thought of trying? Fill me in a little.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. So for me, what I did so far and what I have been doing for the last 10 years is I'm a huge, big fan, lover of coffee. I love coffee. And for me, coffee was something that really changed my life because growing up, I did not really like the taste of it. I was a tea person. I started drinking tea very, very early in my life. So when I started tasting coffee during perhaps my early 20s, I felt that coffee is something that really boosted my energy in a really, really, really crazy way. I always say that for me, coffee is like the limitless pill. You know, I just get so focused. I get so in the zone. I get so open in terms of conversations, in terms of like ideas and creativity. It's I don't know how, I don't know why, but it just got this crazy effect on me. And I know so many people who can just take coffee and go to sleep and they just feel relaxed and they feel like it's not a big deal. But for me, consistently throughout the years, just a double espresso or even a triple espresso can get me going like crazy. I'm already a high energy individual, so maybe that's what's going on there. The high energy plus a little bit of stimulation from the caffeine can get me that extra, let's say, push. But so far, coffee, and perhaps the second thing is running. So I go for a 10K or a 5K after that. I just feel so creative. So perhaps coffee is for those normal tasks or repetitive tasks, and running is for that creative mindset. Because anytime that I have an issue in my work, I go for a run and everything looks so easy. Everything looks doable, especially when you push your body through that perhaps 10K, 15K, 21K. Life looks pretty, pretty easy.
And how does it show up it sounds like you're doing pretty well. Let's start there, right? One of the first things is always to say, okay, are you already doing fine or is it terrible? It sounds like you're doing pretty damn well. So let's start with that.
hmm
But how does this look like in your day? Like how do you feel you'd like to improve or walk me through a situation where you think, you know what, I'd like some extra energy here. Or what does that look like? You said a little bit. Say some more.
Yeah. So perhaps let's say, for example, I start my day normally. I go for a quick run, let's say a 10K run. Then I come back, I get ready to start working, to start developing. So I'm an AI instructor, I'm an AI teacher. So I develop courses, then I teach those. So I start developing my courses and my content, and then I do a session, let's say 4 hour session, 2 hour session, 8 hour session, depending on the contract. During those sessions, I always notice that during the beginning of the session, I'm this high energy individual. I feel great. I'm there. I'm going. I'm interactive. Everything is engaging. Everything is really good. But during the end of the session, if you will, I'm still high energy, if you will, but not the same individual, not the same, let's say, snap, not the same perhaps engagement level. I start feeling, it's time for me to relax, to chill. Maybe I need to take a break. So I start getting to these perhaps ideas of maybe the session is too long. I start thinking these perhaps ideas that the session is taking too much time. So maybe it's a mindset issue, not an energy issue. At the same time, I lose a little bit focus at the end. So let's say 80% of the session, I'm really there, I'm engaged, I'm super high energy. I really believe in when it comes to teaching and sharing knowledge, it's all about making it very entertainment. So how can we perhaps mix entertainment with the complexity of topics and learning itself? So I make it very entertaining, but I lose that entertainment aspect of my personality at the end of it. And I'm always thinking about teaching as a stand-up comedy. So how can it be very funny for people involved, and how can it be also very knowledgeable? Sometimes perhaps the issue is at the end of it, I'm always feeling a little bit that I lost that edge. Obviously, I think as human beings, we have to understand that we have limitations in terms of energy, in terms of resources. But if there is a way, if there is perhaps something that I can do in order to keep that same energy, same consistency throughout the day, especially during that last round, that would really, really, really boost perhaps my productivity. And also, I think it would also improve my mood overall during the end of the day.
I hear you. So let's look at a couple of options here. So thanks for kind of painting a picture. Let's look at a couple of options. The
Mhm.
first question is, and maybe this is relevant, maybe this makes no sense, but I'll ask, have you tried just stopping earlier? Like if you say that at like 3 o'clock you start losing energy and then at 5 you're like, what happens if you stop at 3? Or what happens
Mm.
have shorter days? Have you tested that out?
That's an amazing input. That's an amazing input. The issue with me is, and this is gonna sound a little bit crazy, but growing up, I tried perhaps traveling and spending time, perhaps doing activities that we in our society consider perhaps entertaining. But I really found that what I shine or where I feel really, really, really happy is when I'm working. I love working.
Mhm.
I love just having a lot of work, working 24/7. Even when I'm outside, I'm thinking about work, I'm thinking about projects, I'm thinking about productivity. I'm addicted to work, if you will, and I don't think there is perhaps anything wrong with that. But if I stop, I'm just gonna be stopping to do what? Perhaps that would be the question, because I just want to work. I just want to work 24/7. I just want to work all the time, including the weekends, every single hour, and I love it from the bottom of my heart. So that perhaps gonna be the issue is maybe instead of stopping, maybe decreasing the output. That would be something that I should try, but I never tried that. To be completely frank with you, I never tried to stop early, because I'm always looking for productivity. I'm always looking to output more. How can I get more? If I have, let's say, 20 elements in my to-do list, how can I do 22? How can I do 23? How can I do more? Because that's how I feel really productive, and that productivity perhaps brings a little bit of positivity to my daily routine. And every time I feel I'm going forward, I want to add more, let's say, elements to my plate to make it more challenging, because what I already have, let's say it's not challenging enough. So maybe I'm in a loop, I'm in an infinite loop. So I'm adding more elements to my daily life, and that's making it a little bit, perhaps a little bit difficult to handle.
I think that and I know it's a really, really simple suggestion, right? But I see it very much when I help people with events.
Mm,
The classic one is they're like, oh, let's meet at 8 o'clock, and then there'll be some sort of opening, a little bit of coffee, a little bit of breakfast, and then the program starts at 9, and then people go, and there's lunch, and then at 4, then we do the last, and then at 5, people are done. Right. And then when you talk to the participants, most of them, like let's say it's a conference, and most of them will say, oh, but by 3 o'clock, I'm completely slammed, and the last 2 hours are just, And then I usually
mm,
tell organizers, why do you think that people can kind of absorb learning for 8 hours?
wow.
What would happen if we just gave them 6 hours? What would
Mm,
happen if we, instead of doing 9 to 5, did 9 to 3? Like just cut 2 hours. And then first they're like, but we can't cut 2 hours. Then we would have less time. I say, yes, but do you also agree that the last time is usually quite ineffective? Yes. Okay, why don't we just cut it? What happens then?
mm,
Oh, okay. And sometimes they do, sometimes they try, sometimes they don't. But I always advise simple solutions first. So that's why I say try it, right? I don't say you don't have to do it forever. It's not like you have to commit and say, now this is the rule of your life, but try just as an
mhm,
experiment to say, what if you stopped earlier and just did less? What would that
mm,
mean for your state of mind? So that's the first thing.
mhm.
The second is, what do you do when you don't work? What else is in your life but work?
Nothing. I'm just a worker. workaholic, to be completely honest with you.
Then maybe that's something we should chat a little bit about because being a
Yeah.
workaholic is it's much better than being an alcoholic. It's much better than doing drugs. It's much better than hitting your kids, right? Of kind of
Hmm.
problematic behaviors, being a workaholic is reasonably good compared to a lot of other things, but it's still not necessarily super healthy. And I say that as somebody who happily used to work 60, 70 hour weeks.
Wow.
And that was when I wasn't in the field. When I was doing
Hmm.
field work, I would easily work a lot more, but this was just like my home office work was easily 60, 70 hour weeks
Hmm.
without, and
Hmm.
I loved it. I thought it was very, very interesting. Now, as somebody who has a daughter and a
Hmm.
family life that takes up a bit more of my time, I work much, much less than that. But one of the things I also discovered is that when you are a workaholic, there's usually a reason, right? One thing is the work is interesting, but there's usually something that is, if not failing, then at least hard, right? What
Hmm.
when you're if you have times where you're not working, I assume they happen, right? Do you have any hobbies? Do you have family? Do you have kids? Do you have pets? Do you like what does it look like when you're not working, Mohammed?
Yeah, so when I'm not working, I'm running. So I love long distance running.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think, and I love perhaps going to running events. So that's something that I do when I'm not working. So I try any city where I'm currently at. I go and then do a quick Google search, and I try to find out what are the running events perhaps happening in November, December, January. I sign up to those and I go to those events. And I'm a pretty social guy. I love talking to people. I think people are really, really interesting, and I love perhaps understanding their personality, their mind, what they do, their life story. I'm like the human experience is extremely interesting to me, but perhaps it's a question of the mind as well, because I feel I was blessed with a really, really, really quick mind. The way that I see things, the way that I look at complex algorithms and perhaps coding and programming and AI in general is extremely interesting. So I feel if I'm not using my mind to be productive, I am not perhaps leveraging my gift. And so many people would love to have that gift. So why am I not using it, if you understand what I mean?
I understand. I understand. On the other hand, what happens if you don't use it? Does somebody come along and hit you on the head and say, Mohammed, you're not using your gift. What is wrong with you? That is not okay. Or is this mostly something in your own head?
Yeah, it's definitely in my own head. That's a great point. It's definitely in my own head. I'm just thinking about that perhaps as maybe it's something that will make me, I don't know. I feel sometimes that if you have a gift, or if you have, let's say, something that you were gifted with, I think it's a waste if you don't use it. For example, let's say you are a very fast person, you are a very gifted runner, and if you don't participate in the Olympics or in running events or something where you can perhaps win, you just wasted your gift, you wasted your talent, and that's something that's I'm always thinking about. Plus, I really believe that talent enough is not perhaps good enough. I combine talent and hard work, and these two are very hard to combine, because I'm the kind of guy who can work hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'm still there. I have stamina for days, and that's a combination that I think is quite interesting to leverage and to use. But sometimes chilling feels like a waste. That's perhaps would be the issue with me when I'm chilling, when I'm relaxed, when I'm, let's say, not doing anything. I'm still thinking about the code, if you will. I'm still thinking about programs. My mind is still working. I'm still thinking about what are some projects that I can still add to my to-do list to make the to-do list more complex. Because for me, it's not the complexity of the project that makes the project entertaining. It's, can I do many projects at the same time, knowing that one project is complex enough for a normal person? So can we add 10, 20, 15 projects at the same time? And can I deliver all of them during the deadline and make it look easy? So I'm always challenging myself by putting myself under perhaps a lot of pressure. And I don't know how I do it, but I always rise under that pressure. I always shine. I always find ways. And that's something that makes me super happy. I know I have family members who told me in the past, listen, working this hard is unhealthy, but I just feel so happy doing it. And I don't know, maybe it's a good idea to balance life out, but so far, even when I'm out with friends, I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about just programming, going back to that keyboard and just writing code. And maybe that's unhealthy, but I would love to get your input.
Sure, sure. So I think unhealthy is it's a tricky word because what the hell does that mean, right? One thing I want to poke a little at,
hmm
that is that when you said, let's say you have a gift of being very fast, and if you're not kind of training and working hard and maybe go to the Olympics, then it's a little bit of a waste of the gift, you said.
Mm.
So somebody who wins an Olympic medal in running, right? Let's say one of these fast Usain Bolt, fastest man alive, incredible talent, incredible physique, but also a ton and ton of hard work,
Mm.
right? Somebody who has a gift and is using that gift. Do you think Usain Bolt's, I don't know what Usain Bolt's private life look like, but if Usain Bolt has to pick up two kids every day at 4 o'clock, then probably that's going to be a little bit hard on the training.
Mm.
We don't know if Usain Bolt has kids or not, but I know that there are many things in life, and it's hard to do all of them at once.
hmm
For example, right now we've just had the American presidential election. Some call that the kind of the most stressful job in the world. And it's pretty certain that if you are the president of the United States, you're not going to see your friends that often. Your family has to come to you. You're not going to have time for your kids. You have a whole lot of things that you can do and influence, and that's impressive and amazing. And you can impact the world, but you also have to sacrifice a lot. And I think one of the tricky things with saying if you have a gift, you should use it is what about the other gifts? What about if you have the kindness to be an amazing father?
Mm.
Well, if you're busy coding all the time, then you're obviously not busy being an amazing father to your three kids or whatever that might look like. I don't know. Do you have kids? Well,
No, 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 I don't. I'm perhaps pretty young and currently no kids, no family. I have extended family. I have perhaps siblings. I have family members, but I don't have kids, and I would love to. I would love one day to have kids for sure.
there's plenty of time, and the reason I mentioned that is that it might just as well be spending time with friends or helping your mother or whatever it is that there's only so much time. And
Mm,
we're always trying to feed the gift, whatever that gift may be, whether it's exceptional coding skills or it's running very fast or being a kind parent or a helpful friend. Well, then there's something else we're not doing. And most people have multiple gifts, right? Just because Usain Bolt is the fastest man alive, he might be an amazing father, he might be a great friend, he might be a good cook, but you can be sure that every time he's out running, he's not cooking. And every time he's cooking, he's not running. But if there's this monomaniacal passion that can lead to amazing results. But sometimes it's also risky because what happens if your entire identity is based on something and suddenly that becomes unavailable?
mm,
Suddenly you break a leg, or suddenly it becomes hard to code because your eyes get a little bit square, or suddenly the job market changes, or
mm,
suddenly the weather is different and you can't surf as you enjoyed, or whatever it is, right? That it is pretty common when you talk about work-life balance that if there's only one thing, that can be beautiful, but it can also be a little bit risky, just like having only one customer.
mm,
Is that what happens when that breaks down? That if your whole identity is built on this, what would happen tomorrow if you couldn't code?
hmm hmm that's a great point. Yeah,
And I'm not saying stop doing it, of course not. You should do what you love,
yeah.
but I'm saying that there is something smart in training different muscles,
Mm,
especially because the world is changing and
hmm
life changes and you never know what happens tomorrow. That's part of the fun of it. But it also means that if you only focus on one thing and you spend 100 hours every week doing that one thing, then it's pretty hard to also learn how to do the other things. And we can't be experts at everything, right? We can't be everything all the time. But having a 100% focus on one thing is a little bit tricky because number one, you're a little bit you're vulnerable to if something changes.
Hmm.
Number two is that if we look at it from like a strictly energy point of view, I'm guessing that you have a mind that runs really fast.
Yeah, super fast. Yeah,
And is it also somewhat correct to say that one of the reasons you're attracted to coding is because there's always more complex code? There's always more,
absolutely.
you're, no matter how fast your mind is, there's always more possibility within the digital space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if your mind runs really fast, and the way you reward it is by running even faster and making it run even faster, and the way you reward that is by making it run even faster.
Mm. Yeah.
Then what happens when it slows down a bit because you're tired or because you're kind of in a bad mood or something is tricky? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, for me, I really don't allow it to get to that point. So for me, it's I'm a very disciplined individual. So if let's say if I'm feeling a little bit low energy or I just snap out of it, just like what's going on today. I love speaking to myself. I know that's a little bit not common, but I'm a very self-motivated individual. So I speak to myself. I'm always speaking to myself. What's going on today? What's happening today? Are we gonna get this done or not? So I'm having a conversation with myself, and that conversation it always ends up by me coming to the conclusion that today we have to finish this task no matter what happens. So yeah, I know today you're not feeling well, but the task is also waiting. So let's get it done. Let's go. So it's always this, let's say, motivation based conversation. And to be honest with you, at the end of the day, I feel really happy knowing that, you know what, I started the day with 10% energy, and still with that 10% energy, I was able to get the task done. And that's it. Because for me, the most embarrassing thing ever is not meeting a deadline. Like for me, I'm very, very, very much into meeting all my contractual obligations. Like when I shake somebody's hand and I say I'm going to deliver something the 16th of this month, I will die and deliver it on the 16th. I'm very much into, I have my word is everything. So when I say this is going to be delivered, I don't know what happens. It's going to be, of course, ethically and legally, it will be delivered that day. And that's something that I'm going to do. So perhaps it's a pride thing. I'm a very proud individual, and I put a lot of pride in my work, and that's how I get my energy sometimes. Even though, let's say I'm sick, I get the cold, I will still deliver, and nobody will know that I was sick. There is this expression that I love: never let them see you sweat, and that's how I live my life. You know, that's literally.
You say that you never break a deadline and no matter what happens, you will get it done, which I think are admirable skills to some extent, but it also smacks a little bit to me, and here I'm going to be a little bit rough.
Please feel free. Yeah.
It smacks a little bit of some pretty radical need for control.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like if you say that no matter what, you will get it done, then you're also saying that no matter what happens, you can control if it's done, which
Mm.
is not always the case, but perhaps more dealing with code than with humans.
Mm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Maybe that's why I love the digital world, because you can still, perhaps you still have the possibility to make things happen. You know, you're still coding it. You can control easily if you just find a solution, or find a way to let's say get the project done and get the project concluded. But I would say it's definitely a control in a positive manner, because without deadlines, I don't think we will be able to have a working society, if you know what I mean.
I know.
Deadlines and you know and things arriving at the same time, and perhaps having, let's say, you send a bank transfer, that bank transfer should work 100% using a digital platform, and without having that level of control, I think we will end up having chaos. So I would say it's disciplined control.
Yeah, definitely. Do you demand the same of others?
I try when I'm working, let's say, with, perhaps when I'm working with other individuals, let's say I'm coding in a group or in a team, but I try to be very much, let's say, how do you say it? I try to be understanding. So I
Mhm.
ask what's going on with their life. I'm a very social individual, and I love perhaps understanding what people are going through, but I sometimes work with my brother, my youngest brother, who's currently 20, and I would demand that from him because I know him well, and he's a family member. He's close to me, and I know his potential. I know his capabilities, and he's an extremely talented programmer himself and a digital entrepreneur. So I would demand that from him, most likely. But others outside that family circle, I feel that if I do that, I would definitely lose a lot of people because not everybody can stand that pressure, if you will. So I try to put a deadline there, and I try to follow up, and I try to be as nice as possible about it. But at some point, I just understand that not everybody is perhaps as, let's say, strict with their deadline as I am, and I just let it go. So that's why I try to work as much with perhaps family member as possible, because family is perhaps I know them very well. I trust them very well. I know what they're capable of. My brother is somebody that I mentored over the years, so I know him very well. I know his perhaps discipline, potential, and I know if I pressure him, he's not gonna go away, if you know what I mean, because he's part of the family, and he's there. I really believe in family standing by each other. And if you can find a friend who can be a family member in that sense, that's also something that is great. And for me, my brother is that kind of individual who will deliver on the deadline, who when he tells you I'm delivering tomorrow, you can go and sleep and forget about it. He will be delivering tomorrow. And that's something that I noticed. But other individuals, I'm always very much considerate. I try to ask about what's going on in their life, if something is happening, and I always have a plan B. So I don't know if that's healthy or not, but in any project, I will have a plan B. So if things fall off, I'm like, yeah, it is what it is, no worries. Because before I didn't, and it really cost me a lot of time. It cost me a lot of projects, and it cost me, it cost me a lot, perhaps that trust. I trust people. I think people are amazing, but sometimes you better learn to be disappointed. And this is a rule that I put together. So if you already expect disappointment, you will never be disappointed in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. If you have low expectations, then they can
Yeah,
only be met or surprised.
absolutely.
Mohammed, if we for a moment leave the fact that this insane drive towards efficiency and towards doing well, these high demands of yourself, right? If we for a moment leave them a little bit and return to the energy question,
Mhm.
what is something that you have tried that didn't work? What's something that somebody has said you should try this and you tried and it didn't work?
I tried, perhaps in the past, I tried to go for a walk. I tried to go outside, go for a walk, just walking instead of running. I tried that. I tried also to, in the past, to let's say, listen to a podcast or listen to like a motivational podcast, something that will motivate me, my brain, etc. And I found that podcasts are really good. They help me get motivated. They help me get into perhaps the zone, but I need perhaps to always speed them up like 1.5 or 1.75 because I really need that fast talking, let's say, pace for my brain to be processing it so it can go there and I can just get stimulated with it. So I perhaps tried some audiovisual, let's say, elements or assets to get me into the zone. But what did not work for me is naps. So taking a nap, a lot of people told me, you know what, just take a power nap, drink some coffee, take a nap for 20 minutes, automatically you will wake up feeling great. Naps for me, they don't do the trick. And I also noticed that going for walks, it doesn't work really well for me. What else? I used to do cold showers because I remember these are amazing for the brain and for perhaps
Mhm.
to get you back to the zone. I tried in the past perhaps getting a really good nutrition throughout the day. I noticed that if I eat during the day, I lose a lot of energy. So what I do is I just try to get some coffee early on with some fruits during the day, and I keep perhaps just eating fruits throughout the day, and I eat my big meal at the end of the day before I go to sleep. So that really helped me. That really got me going. But beside that, I think maybe people told me in the past to take naps and to go for walks, and these two options did not really do it for me.
Got it. What happens when things are not going fast enough, right? There's obviously a very quick mind there that you can't listen to a podcast without it being at 1.5 or 1.75 speed, and you can't walk, you need to run. What happens? What does it feel like when you slow down? When you deliberately slow down, what happens then? What does it look like inside your brain?
So anytime that I try to slow down, automatically I get back to that speed again. So it was never I tried meditation before in the past in order to slow my brain, but it did not work. I'm always thinking about problem solving, about algorithms and coding and tech and perhaps new innovative way of developing web applications and mobile application and AI tools. So in my brain, inside my brain, it's perhaps a very busy conversation. So I'm always thinking about tech and programming and let's say things to do. So I never try to slow down and I never did slow down. I don't think if I ever caught myself slowing down one day. Maybe I think after a very heavy run. So let's say I go for 21K or 25K. When I sit down after the run and I'm just looking at, let's say, wherever I am in a forest, or I'm looking at let's say in the marina or whatever, I feel a very calm, relaxed mindset. Like, yeah, let's
Mhm.
just take 10 minutes to relax, to think about life, to think about the day. Then after that 10 minutes, again, I'm back. It's like a reboot. I'm back again. It's super fast, super quick. To-do list. What can I do next? Next. What's next? I have this crazy drive of always thinking, what's next? What's next? After this, what's next? Even after a successful project or after I deliver something, I don't like to celebrate it. I just want something next, something new. Let's not celebrate too much. What's next? And I know this for people, it's like when I say this to people, they're like, "What's going on with you, man?" But I'm super happy. I'm the happiest man alive today, and I say that with a big smile, because I love what I do, and I do what I love, and that's perhaps maybe that's the struggle that I'm having is how can I slow down, and is slowing down healthy for me, knowing that my brain is shines under speed.
Yeah, I hear you. So I think, I mean, when I hear you talk about it, it's also easy for me to think, okay, that sounds interesting, but I'll do my best not to judge. And if you say you're happy, well, that counts more than whatever I might think, right? You're the one inside your brain, not me.
Hmm.
However, I think there might be something here that this you do things. I'm guessing that some of the work you do has more impact than others, right? That it's not that every minute is equal. I'm guessing some minutes are more meaningful than others.
Absolutely, that's a great guess.
And it would be weird not, right? So
Yeah,
a piece of advice that may be useful here as a perspective, and this is I'm right now finishing a book on getting shit done. And
yeah.
one of the outside opinions I've gotten in, I've asked some friends to weigh in, and one of them Ruth wrote, that she has changed her work so she eats all her frogs on Mondays. Essentially, she does a lot of
Mm,
creative work, and then she has parts of that creative work that are a bit annoying. And what she used to have was she used to spread it out over the week so that she would do a little bit of the annoying work every day so it wasn't just one big mouthful. And what that meant was that she was constantly stressing over the annoying work, and she needed to get that out of the way before she felt she could start with the creative fun work, where she could easily
mm,
go long into the night because that was enjoyable. And then what she did was she changed. So now her work week is that on Mondays, as she said, she eats frogs. On Mondays, she will do all the annoying stuff. She will do 12, 15-hour work days on Mondays because then all the annoying stuff is done. And the rest is stuff that it doesn't matter if she goes over time because she loves doing that. So she'll
mm,
basically clear the deadlines on
mhm,
Monday, and then she will dive into the other things because she wants to.
That's an amazing input. Yeah, that's an amazing strategy. Wow, love that. Yeah, it sounds amazing because I think for me, I love teaching. I'm a natural born teacher. I love teaching. I love perhaps just sharing with people knowledge and taking very complex topics and making them super easy. And just I love that. that aha moment when somebody's like, oh, what? Ah, okay, I get it now. So I love taking complex topics and making them super easy. And for me, that's perhaps I think that that's my in my heart, that's what I will do for the rest of my life is to teach. And I'm an AI engineer, and AI is my field itself. So I know teaching perhaps will be a little bit automated, but I see that AI will perhaps be a reinforcement engine. It will be a tool
Mhm.
that a lot of our teachers nowadays will use in order to get that knowledge or that perspective as soon as possible. It will add more, let's say, possibilities to their examples, to the different levels of students that they are dealing with. So it's going to be an upgrade. I'm not really part of that perhaps idea that AI will automate everything and it's an issue. I think it's just a beautiful tool that will make our life super, super easy if used correctly. So for me, I love teaching. I'm happy, super happy in a live session with 400 people, and I'm just explaining, let's say, data analytics to a group of, let's say, engineers. I love that. That makes me super, super happy. And I love that interactivity with them, those questions, those, let's say, those complex topics, and how can I make it really easy for them. Coding as well, I love it. I love that alone time when I'm just coding and programming and finding issues and finding solutions to those problems and debugging. Let's say organizing my code, it's perhaps maybe one of the boring aspects of it. How can you organize your folders and put them together in a very organizational manner? Yeah, so I think the strategy that you shared with me today is an amazing one. So just do all the, let's say, repetitive, boring work on Mondays, and during the week, go full creative, innovate, go crazy.
It at least is worth trying, right? Maybe it'll work, maybe it
Yeah.
won't. At least it's relatively easy to try. And then I think there might be another thing here as well, which is that when you say you start out, you do the run, you have energy, you're totally pumped, and then you do work, and it's really good, and then at some point you start losing energy again. And part of that, I heard this explained by a kind of a physical education coach some years back, saying that one of the things is the body has some resources, right? The body has an amount of resources. Those are based on energy intake and how good shape you're in, all that sort of thing. But those are the resources the body has. However, the mind sees those resources a bit differently. So
Mm,
adrenaline, it doesn't magically make you better, but it makes you feel you're better because you can draw on the resources of the body directly while the adrenaline is pumping. So it means that
mm,
if you're, I don't automatically get in better shape because I have adrenaline because something threatening happens or something
mm,
dangerous, but my body allows me to kind of borrow from strength I don't normally tap into. But the price will be paid later, which is usually why
mm,
when people have done something really crazy physically, like they've run into a fire and gotten out a family from that fire and they barely felt the flames and they were carrying somebody twice their weight. And they do these superhuman things. Then
mm,
afterwards, they also collapse because the body needs its restoration. The body was just saying, hey, you can borrow some energy, but I'll need it back later.
mm, 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 mm.
And part of that is that when you do something like a run, right, you enjoy the run, so you have a good time doing it, you enjoy it. And then when you're done with the run, your body has extra energy.
Yeah.
And that takes you somewhere, but it also means that it needs to rest, right? You run 20 kilometers, at some point your body needs to rest, but it doesn't rest right away, right? You get that
Mm,
energy boost after a good workout, unless, as you said, if it's a really hard workout, then you don't really get that energy boost, or it's very short, and then you just collapse and you rest and you have like deep relaxation because you're
mm,
done, you're out of energy. But I think part of a simple thing might simply be to try, right? I don't know if this will work, but it might be easy to try, is to split up your energy boost throughout the day.
mm, mm.
That if you say you do a morning run and you're totally energized and you do, what if you didn't do a 10K but only a 5K, and then you put in time to have a 5K more at 2 o'clock?
Wow. Wow. I would love that.
Right? But it might just help because then you obviously enjoy that running. And I'm sure
Mm,
what happens when you run is that your mind does all sorts of nice things because while it's
yeah.
still fast, it's also running. So it's in a different environment. And I'm pretty sure and correct me if I'm wrong, that your mind reorders your thoughts in nice ways when you run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. 100%. I feel so sharp and I feel also super happy. Like my dopamine level goes really, I'm the happiest man alive after a run. Like if I meet anybody outside after the run, I'm just gonna be the best conversation with them. They're gonna be like, wow, who's this guy? This guy is so happy. Like what is he doing? Like his energy and I'm very perhaps the dopamine I feel after a run is so high that I want to share it with everybody else. Just want to make
Hmm.
everybody happy. I just want to be like, hey, how are you? How is your day? How are you feeling? What are you thinking about? Let me help you with that problem. So sometimes I want to help others with their problems because I don't have enough problems in my life. So that's that's perhaps that's perhaps the power of the run. So yeah, that's an amazing strategy. I would love to perhaps do a morning 5K, then an afternoon 5K, and that would definitely be a solution I would love trying. That's a great strategy.
Think of it like when the other people suggest naps, right? They're saying, yes, have your night's sleep, but then have just like a short thing to get re-energized. Well, maybe naps don't do it for you, but perhaps those runs might. And
Hmm.
perhaps it's easy to experiment with saying, okay, let's say you have the 5K run in the morning, and then you do another 5K early afternoon, and then you do just a 1K, maybe like a high, not a sprint, but like a faster moving one a little bit later in the afternoon, right? Just as a
Hmm.
test. So it's
Yeah.
the same length of running, but you're splitting it up differently. Consider it like if it was food, it's the same amount of food. It's just not one big meal, but you're spreading it out during the day.
Hmm. Absolutely.
It's at least easy to try.
Absolutely. I will definitely try that tomorrow. That's an amazing strategy. That's an amazing strategy. I love it. I think that would be my fix for sure. Because if I because that's perhaps half a day energy, 5K, then another half on the other, let's say other half of the day. So I'm just gonna sleep great that day and I'm gonna have a lot of energy throughout the day. So I will definitely do that. I think that's an amazing strategy. 5K early morning, 5K afternoon, and that's it. Problem solved.
We'll see, right? Maybe it doesn't help, maybe it's terrible, but at least it's easy to test. But what it also does, Mohammed, is that let's start wrapping up on that note, on that nice high note. I want to do two
Hmm.
things. The first is I want to thank you for
Thank you.
not only talking with me, but also with our listeners there.
My pleasure.
Maybe there's somebody listening in who thinks, huh, I want to do that as well. And I can recognize that fast moving mind.
Hmm.
So thanks for being an inspiration to people out there because we don't know who's listening, but probably somebody is. So that's the first thing. The second is I want you to think for a moment, but with your head, that shouldn't be hard. And then I want you to share three things you take with you from this conversation. Three things that maybe something you're going to do differently tomorrow. You just mentioned one. Maybe
Hmm.
something that you hadn't thought of. Maybe something that you rethought of. Maybe something where you think, yeah, here, Klaus is just completely wrong. That also
Hmm.
works. But three takeaways that you have from our conversation today.
Absolutely. So I would like to start by saying thank you so much for your time. It was an amazing conversation, and I appreciate your time and your input. And I would definitely recommend this conversation to everybody I know because it's such a insightful one. And in terms of, let's say, three main inputs, I mean, the first input that I got, and I would definitely, I think it's 100% thanks to you that I get this input, is that life is more than work, perhaps, because I know that I love working and work is really, really, really fun. But when you said kids, I really felt that perhaps I can be a really good father, a kind father to kids and teach them because I love teaching. I have a lot of patience and I can perhaps I have energy for days. So that's a good recipe for a good father. And that's something that I'm thinking about. And the second, let's say, input that I got is that don't put all your eggs in one basket. So don't
Mm,
invest all your energy in one thing because maybe that thing will be taken away from you because of automation or you get into an accident or something. Something can happen. Let's say you are a very, let's say, good basketball player and you cannot play basketball anymore. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. Diversify your
mhm.
portfolio a little bit. We all have more than one talent. And get it done. And the third thing is just be you. And that's something that I learned from you, because every time I tell you, people perhaps judge me because of I'm a workaholic. You're like, you know what, man, just do you. If it makes you happy, that's good. So just be you, no matter what makes you feel happy, do it. And make sure that you always stay true to yourself.
I appreciate that. And I think that that last piece is that one of the nice things about doing that is that even if it doesn't work, even if it goes wrong, at least you
Mm,
can face the mirror.
yeah.
And it turns out that if things go wrong and you kind of didn't stay true to yourself, then it can be very hard, right? Because
Mm,
if we always knew that we just did what somebody else asked, even if we don't believe it, and it would work, then, well, that's pretty tempting. But the problem is you don't know if it's going to work. So if you at least make sure that you can stand by yourself, that makes life in general a lot easier, whether things work or not. So thank you
absolutely.
for taking that away from it. Finally, thank you, Mohammed. Thank you for those
Thank you.
three. And for all of you out there, this has been the Innovation Coaching Podcast. You've heard Mohammed Ishud and me, your host, Klaus Hostel. Thank you for listening.